Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, February 2nd, 2026. On the show today, news. In surveys, we translate some Disney terminology for you. In listener questions, the greatest fireworks idea since gunpowder. Then in our main segment, Jim continues the story of what EPCOT construction was like in the hectic months before it opened. Let's get started by bringing in the man who asks how his car's check engine light knows when he's finally got a little bit of money in the bank. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It's going well, Lemon. I'm so glad you bring this topic up because, Nancy and I have a 2024 Subaru Outback. And we largely bought this car because it's four-wheel drive and good road clearance, which is crucial this time of year, especially when we have to get up and down the driveway on days when our plow guy is like, yeah, no, you're on your own. But anyway, in the middle of the dashboard, there is this 11-inch touchscreen. And I got to tell you, for weeks now, it's been constantly telling me how far away I am from our local Rite Aid. And never mind, Len, this store closed in July of 2025, or that I didn't really ever go to Rite Aid all that often. I'll be in the car, I'll be driving, and then I'll look over at the thing, and the car's like, hey, Jim, remember that Rite Aid in Milford? It's only 2.3 miles from here. It's a 3-minute drive. Want to go?
Did you set it up in your GPS or something, or is this some sort of advertising thing?
I have no clue. And it's just one of these things. I turn to the car and go, no, we're going to the post office. Come down. And then, it's like 2 minutes later, it's like, it's now 1.6 miles away. Come on. You want? And it's like, no, it's closed. Now stop this. We're not going to Rite Aid. And then it's like, it's 2 minutes away. And it's just like, Len, I feel like
it's 3 minutes away. You're getting farther, colder, warmer, colder.
I'm starting to get concerned that, the car, first of all, just wants me to drive to Rite Aid. And once I'm in the parking lot, it's like, okay, now I know I can trust you. Let me tell you what I really want you to do.
That's exactly it. It starts off with these small requests and it gets bigger.
Yeah.
The other thing that bothers me about modern technology in cars is, have you noticed that every once in a while, when you put the car in reverse, you have a backup camera now? Mm-hmm. Why does the backup camera show a car just like mine occasionally running over a toddler's tricycle? That's just annoying. I don't need to see a safety video before I go in reverse. What is that? And the screaming and the whining and the running of children, it sounds very real. But I'm I don't need to see this safety video.
Wow.
In my little backup camera.
Okay. You and I may need to have a talk off air involving a lawyer. But I'm just saying.
All right. Well, before we do that, Jim, let's do a shout out to our subscribers. Thanks to everyone who subscribes over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including Clams Mahoney, Disney Oldsters, Douglas Krupa, Emily Kind, Katie S. Rose, and Megan Legband. Jim, these are the cheese graters at Epcot's Italy Pavilion, whose dazzling good looks sometimes make you forget to say when, resulting in a Parmesan cheese ratio of 1.3 pounds per guest. True story.
Oof. Okay. Just a little side note here. Back when Alfredo's, was the restaurant there, I at one point, forgot to say when, and he put enough cheese on that the guy had to then leave the restaurant immediately and go have carpal tunnel surgery. It just, that much cheese grating.
You could reproduce the entire cheese wheel just from your plate. I get it.
There we go.
All right, Jim. On to the news. The Disney Dish News is sponsored by UnlockedMagic.com from our friends at DVCRentalStore.com. Would a Walt Disney World snack improve your mood right now? Ask your doctor if a therapy churro is right for you. Then visit our friends at UnlockedMagic.com for discounted theme park tickets that will get you the help you need. Their prices are better than Disney's, so visit UnlockedMagic.com now and you'll have enough left over for the chocolate dipping sauce too. All right, on to the news, Jim. Animal Kingdom has moved up its opening date for Harambe Market by almost a month. Remember, Jim, this is the redo to ensure that the park has a place for burgers and fries with Restaurantosaurus closed. So some menu items from our friends at WW Magic. So we've got a 3rd-pound Angus bacon cheeseburger, the regular Angus cheeseburger, chicken strips, the harissa chicken wrap, and then fries as a side for $5.49. This is Jim. This is just to make people happy with the stuff that's available in the park, right?
Yeah, I mean, face it, when Restaurantosaurus goes down, finding places inside that park that have, kid-friendly stuff is going to be difficult. Yeah. I'm just going to be intrigued to see what happens once the Encanto Village comes back online, and whether we see the old menu come back, or this may be one of those things that we look back on fondly. Come to 2027, 2028.
I'd be really surprised if they did burgers and chicken strips in tropical Americas. I think they almost have to go with special theming there just because of what it is. I can see a burger and fry place on Discovery Island, right? Because that's sort of neutral. But any themed land has to have themed food. So I suspect this is going to eventually end up somewhere on Discovery Island. We'll see.
Okay.
And speaking of food, Jim, over in Disneyland, Napa Rose is reopening this week, February 6th. Did you see this?
I did. And this for foodies on the West Coast, this is happy news. They, and this is a couple of months off of the original opening date, right? Back in 2025.
These things take time.
Okay.
Jim. If you're in project management, there's a philosophy of we're going to do it right the first time, no matter how long it takes, and I think that's what Disney's doing here.
Okay.
And that's fine. I'm interested in the fact that it's moving to a fixed price menu that starts at $188 per person as well. Mm-hmm. And is that Jim, because they know it's so popular and they don't want people just coming in for like appetizers and waters and then leaving?
Yeah, I think you are sadly onto something there. Face it, Napa Rose isn't necessarily the biggest restaurant, at that particular hotel, and the notion of losing a table to exactly what you described. We'll do some appetizers, we'll do some wine, and we'll sit here for 2 hours. So, wow, though, $188 per person. It is worth it. Worth noting.
Oh, fantastic experience. $188 is a lot. So it's a special occasion type of restaurant at that price point.
There we go.
All right, Jim. And then over at Universal Studios Japan's announced plans to bring a Pokémon attraction to that park, with eventual rollouts to other parks around the world. And Jim, I know we've heard rumors about bringing Pokémon to the U.S. There seems to be right now 3 places in Universal Orlando that it could go. One is Lost Continent at Islands of Adventure. Another one is Springfield, USA and Universal Studios Florida, assuming that Universal does not decide to keep promoting The Simpsons, which is now a Disney property, inside Universal's parks. And then the third one would be an expansion land at Epic Universe. All right, so Jim, of those 3 areas, Lost Continent, Springfield, USA, and expansion land at Epic Universe, if you can tell us which one you think it's going into, go ahead and do it. And if you can't, just claim that you see some interesting wildlife outside of your window, and we'll move on.
Okay, well, oddly enough, I can see some interesting wildlife. There's a little red squirrel. But I also want to remind folks that on a recent Disney Dish, we were able to begin an episode with a round of hearty congratulations, because I want to say 2 years out, you had information about Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift coming to Universal Studios Florida as a replacement for Rip Ride Rocket. And what was also interesting during that same period, those 2 years, is the fence went up. We had the posters for the Back to the Future thing, the posters for the Ghostbusters thing. Universal had a lot of fun with us, is I guess what I'm saying. I bring that up because I want to say it was 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, when Pokemon Go was white hot, and we heard about a test that was done in the park over along Fast Food Boulevard at Universal Studios Florida, about potentially doing something Pokemon Go like in that theme park. So
right,
I think we know where this is going, especially on the heels of supposedly Universal's theme park rights to this Simpsons IP are supposed to be going away in 2028. And the other thing worth noting, if we pivot to the Lost Continent, that Poseidon's Fury area, isn't that where we've heard Zelda's potentially going? Or
it's hard for me to keep up with all the IP, but that's what I thought too. Zelda there, and then fair. All right, well, putting some notes in there. All right, fair enough. All right, Jim, on to surveys. Andrew wrote in with this EPCOT survey, and there are 3 interesting questions here. One is, would the absence of any of the following aspects of your trip led you to visit the Walt Disney World theme parks for a different number of days than you did visit? So in other words, if one of these things wasn't available, would you have shortened your trip? And the first option is core EPCOT attractions, Frozen Ever After, Soarin' Around the World, Spaceship Earth, Test Track. Guardians of the Galaxy is another option. Journey of Water, inspired by Moana. Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, and the EPCOT International Festival of the Arts. And the last option is, I still would have gone. So, Jim, they're asking if any of the core attractions, right, the stuff that's been around for a while, and then any of the new things, if any of those weren't available, would you have visited for a shorter number of days on your trip? What's Disney going for here?
This is fascinating.
Right. It's interesting that they lump everything built before like 2020 into one one group and then new stuff.
Yeah. The weird part of this is, in fact, we just put up over on Patreon our Epcot walkthrough that we did back in November.
Yeah,
and
sounded great.
I think one of the things that comes through loud and clear is, yes, I know you supposedly finished Epcot, on the heels of the pandemic, but I think what you and I and Mr. Schul make very clear is there's a punch list. There are some things that still need to be done. There are some things that sadly need to be fixed. I mean, just that park in the middle there, that the area light. I mean, we were in there at 6 or 7 o'clock at night and sort of groping around in the darkness because the lighting that used to be in the ground has since been turned off because guests were tripping over it or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I wonder what this means in regards to which work areas are going to be prioritized. Wow, this is interesting.
On the one hand, you can see this question as a sort of gauge for the thing that Jim Schul calls intent to visit, right? If the core Epcot attractions weren't available, would you have still gone to Epcot? If Guardians wasn't available, would you have still gone, right? The fact that they've lumped all of those attractions together, like Frozen, Soarin', Spaceship Earth, Test Track, things like that, that tells me that they're not specifically interested in any one of them closing for any length of time because they're all grouped together, right? But International Festival of the Arts, that could be something where they're looking at, this is how much money it costs us to put this thing on, right? This is how much money we make off of it. Are those two numbers big enough? Or sorry, the difference between the two numbers big enough that we should continue to do this? Or are people just going to the Festival of the Arts because they're already at Epcot? So I think this helps us determine among the 4 things, Guardians, Journey, Remy, and then the Festival of the Arts, which one has the higher intent to visit? I could be wrong.
The irony is out before there was a Festival of the Arts. Disney was kicking the tires of it was the equivalent of like a month-long science festival, wasn't it? I mean, the notion of, kids from all over the country coming in. And in fact, I remember, reading the memo about this where it was, a battling robot competition. Maybe this is about, kicking the tires of another idea for this time of year.
Oh, could be a different thing other than Festival of the Arts, right? That would make sense. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And Jim, there are 2 more questions, and I want to advise our listeners that as I read these questions, remember, one way of looking at these is, would you pay for this thing if it wasn't free? Here we go. And the question is this: if the following resort amenities were not available, would you have still stayed on site? The first one is Lightning Lane passes that you can purchase 7 days in advance. Like, do you stay on site because of the amenity that you can book Lightning Lanes earlier than off-site guests? The second one is early dining reservation access. So you can make dining reservations earlier than offsite guests. And the third one is resort transportation. Would you still stay at a Disney resort if you had to drive yourself to the parks? All right. So normally, Jim, I would say this is just sort of like we're gathering data, updating our files thing. But we're a month into Disneyland Resort getting rid of its early entry program, which was it's a huge benefit in Walt Disney World. I guess not so much in Disneyland. So this kind of tells me that Disney's looking at everything they can that costs money and either looking to remove things that aren't huge guest satisfiers or looking for ways to make additional revenue off of these things.
Wow. I just want to stress that given, it's 2026 and affordability is on everybody's lips right now. And for somebody inside of Disney to be looking at, for example, transportation, that's been
I don't even know, how would that work? Like, would they just install like little bus fare token coin dispensers in the buses? Metro cards? Tap to pay?
Look, take this idea off the table immediately, Disney. Kill it with fire. Do not let this idea flourish, because you do not want that to be part of the conversation. The effect of, I flew all the way down there. I paid for the hotel room, and now they're asking me for money to get on the bus. It's
that would be a lot. I think this is more around if I had to guess, I would say early dining reservation access, because you and I know that sit-down dining is soft right now. They could do things like allow annual pass holders to book things at the same rate. Basically, they can do anything that they want to do, anything that they can to bring up those numbers. And if that means that getting rid of early dining reservation access so offsite guests can get more, that might be something they're considering here.
Okay. Well, let's keep an eye on this and see what actually happens.
All right. An anonymous listener wrote in with a Disney Cruise Line survey that asked, what's it going to take to get you on this boat today? They didn't exactly phrase the question that way, but it was this. If you had learned that Disney Cruise Line was offering a 30% discount on the overall price of a sailing while you were shopping for a cruise vacation, how would it have impacted your decision to book a cruise on the Disney ship that they booked on? I definitely would have booked. I probably would have booked. I might or might not have booked, and so on. So, Jim, that tells me that a pop-up 30% discount, they're trying to measure what kind of effect that has on guests. That's kind of interesting, because Disney Cruise Line is sailing out of Port Canaveral right now at something between like 85 and 92, 93% occupancy. Those are really good numbers. I wonder if they're looking at this, though, for ports like Fort Lauderdale and Miami, where maybe cruise numbers aren't as high.
That's an interesting question.
Or Galveston or New Orleans,
There we go. Also worth noting that, if we pivot, for example, to the airlines and how, if you think about what they've done over the past 5 to 10 years and the algorithm, changing, flight routes, flight times, offerings, that sort of thing, to really bump up the numbers, to have full planes on all routes. Maybe that's what we're looking at here. Just the notion of, 85 to 90%, 2% is great. Not as good as 96%,
Right. That's true. They could just be trying to literally top up the ship and keep it in the low 90s. That's a good point.
There we go.
Oscar wrote in with this interesting Universal Hollywood City Walk survey, which makes it look like they're completely rethinking what City Walk is supposed to be. So, Jim, I think you've heard or seen this survey, but let me just set it up for you. It begins with this. Imagine you're in charge of designing the future of City Walk. Think about what could be added, removed, or updated to improve the current experience, attract new guests, and or encourage guests to stop at City Walk after spending the day at Universal Studios Hollywood. With this in mind, how should Universal Studios Hollywood focus its resources and efforts to make City Walk as appealing as possible? Please rank the following items below in order, where 1 is do this first. And the areas are atmosphere, convenience, full or table service dining, quick service or fast food dining, retail stores for merch like souvenirs, nightlife and adult-centric entertainment, family-friendly entertainment, and retail stores. And then for the thing that you pick, the follow-up question is, which of the following best describes why you would recommend City Walk focus on this thing? And the options are, there's too much of this at City Walk today. There's not enough of this at City Walk today. The existing options aren't special or unique. They're not high quality. They don't offer a good enough value or something else. And then the third question after that is, imagine you're responsible for selecting a new thing that you want. This should be an existing brand or chain from outside of Universal, such as a national chain or brand, a regional or local chain or brand, or an independent local brand. What one specific brand or chain do you believe is the best fit for a new whatever at Universal City Walk? And then the next question after that is, why do you think that's a good fit? And Jim, I think this is interesting because it says that Universal isn't necessarily interested in taking on the risk of developing a new concept. They'd prefer to use an established popular brand and just collect franchise fees from that.
Yeah, I think you've interpreted that correctly. It's just sort of like, what be inside of City Walk is going to get you to drive over here, and make it something we don't have to actually design or develop.
Yeah. I think that's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to get a head start on it. Because, if you're bringing in an existing franchise that is successful elsewhere, number one, it reduces the risk. Number two, it reduces the time it takes to bring something up, right? So higher chance of success and faster. That's a win. I will say this. If you answer that you need more entertainment in City Walk, among the various options that it allows you to pick, as something that you could do. One of them, Jim, is axe throwing. And I want to know what the lawyers think of that. Like, survey team at Universal, have you run this by legal? And if so, can you just cut and paste to me in an email what their response was? Axe throwing.
Yeah, we had for a time up here in New Hampshire a literally it was a bar and grill and axe throwing experience, and it went away very quickly, Len.
Go figure. Go figure.
Yeah.
Have you ever done axe throwing before?
Well, let's put it this way: I still have both of my thumbs, so no, I have not.
So funny you mentioned that. Mm-hmm. So Laurel and I were at the Mohonk Mountain House one time in upstate New York. It's the hotel that is featured on the exterior shots of the TV show Upload. Like that's where they filmed the exteriors. It's a beautiful resort in New York. One of the activities there is actually axe throwing. Two interesting things. One, the actual venue for axe throwing is far enough away from the main building that you can't hear the screams. And number two, the first thing that they teach you in the axe throwing area is how to tie a tourniquet. Honest to God, not making that up. So.
Okay. Wow.
Love it. 100% would do it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right, Jim, on to listener questions. Our friend BioReconstruct sent in photos of Fantasyland. So remember last week, Jim, we were talking about Disney possibly moving the line, the queue for Haunted Mansion. And we had questions about where it would go, right? So Bio wrote in with some special custom aerial photography where he's labeled different points A, B, C, and D. And I've put it in the show notes. But he says, this was an interesting discussion about access to Villains Land. A few things seem to prevent it. Overall is the elevation change. A, which is the corridor between Haunted Mansion and Small World, is a service ramp. B is a service area for Small World boats. Seems like they can't move that. C is the tangled restrooms, and restrooms are tough to move. So it looks like that the other option would be the Fantasyland cast member bus stop, which is behind the Pinocchio Village House restrooms, and it's labeled D in Bio's photo. So yes, I think this is true. And Jim, you and I and Jim Schull had a side conversation after this. The question that I had for Jim Schull was, what's the most narrow walkway that Disney has in its parks for pedestrian access between lands? And so I originally thought that the most narrow walkway was Commissary Lane in the studios. And Google Maps says that's around 45 to 50 feet across.
Okay.
Whereas the walkway around the tangled bathrooms in this image that Bio sent is maybe 15 to 20 feet. And Bio actually pointed out that the walkway between Fantasyland and Liberty Square and the walkway between Dinoland and Discovery Island is also about 20 feet wide. So 20 feet seems to be the minimum. Jim Schul pointed out that Commissary Lane was actually an afterthought and wasn't supposed to be open to guest traffic. And it was, yeah. So I think my next step here is to check the EPCOT building codes. So I think we're still at a maybe on this, but maybe not too. So
well, but remember that the wild card here is we are talking about the Disney villains, and in fact, the one piece of concept art that we've seen so far shows a land that is, wrapped in black thorns, which is supposedly hiding. But also supporting the Maleficent coaster. And, I can't help but think that, one of the conceits of this land is, there's a crack in the wall. There's a secret way in. So a narrow passageway into Villain's Land is actually, it's on story, if anything. It's part of the brand, the theming.
Jim, Universal did it with Nocturne Alley. That is a narrow walkway.
There we go.
Into a very, very themed area. Okay. So the other thing is this. Bio and I were spitballing ideas, and Bio pointed out that you could build the scenery in Villain's Land to frame the nightly fireworks show. And then we both realized, Jim, the fireworks are just explosions with no inherent message. You could use entirely different projection technology and music inside Villain's Land and make the nightly fireworks show a highlight film, but from the perspective of the villains, and edit the movie sequences to make it look like they win in every film. Okay, but Jim, think about this, right?
Yep.
It does two things. One, having guests stay back there for the fireworks show would automatically alleviate some of the pedestrian traffic surge to the buses and monorails because they're way back in the park, right? And because, Jim, it'd be a completely different fireworks show, you'd have to make 2 visits to the Magic Kingdom to see them both, which means more park ticket sales, more merch, more food, more hotel nights, and so on. And Jim, I had to ask Bio if this is what it feels like to be a supervillain. But tell me that's not a good idea. Why not have 2 separate themes for the same fireworks show?
Well, and the weird part of it is, Len, if you've ever been inside of Galaxy's Edge, I want to say especially out in California, didn't they do just that? That there were 2 different sets of fireworks music. There was the Star Wars, people inside of Star Wars Land looking up at the fireworks and getting Star Wars music, and people out in the park getting the traditional, fireworks soundtrack. So
I'm just saying, I 100% agree with this idea. I think it's fantastic.
Okay.
Love it. I think they should do it.
Okay.
All right. Our friend Gary wrote in with an answer to my question about what exactly makes a gargoyle a gargoyle. Gary says, gargoyles have a specific architectural feature of acting as a diversion of water or as a downspout. It's the same root word as gargling. How about that? If a carving on a building is only decorative, it's either a chimera or a grotesque. It's only a gargoyle if it drains or spits water. Or fire in the case of Hunchback of Notre Dame. So I wrote back to Gary and I said, okay, so my understanding is it's only a gargoyle if it comes from the Gargery region of France. Otherwise, it's just gurgling sculpture. Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
And then, Jim, an anonymous listener wrote in with this question for you. It looks like Disney World's Welcome to Your Room video no longer contains Josh D'Amaro. The current version is a female voiceover. Is it possible that removing Josh D'Amaro from the welcoming video could mean a removal of his title of chairperson of Walt Disney Parks and Resorts and a promotion to Walt Disney Company CEO?
Oh,
we should do this pretty soon, right?
Well, that's the other thing. Shul and I were just talking about this the other day because Shul was wondering if this is news that we get with the next earnings call, and I can't help but think
has to be.
Well, but at the same time, I know Disney's done these virtually for the last couple of years because of the pandemic, but the shareholders meeting, isn't that also coming up? Typically, those are in March, aren't they?
I think they are. I mean, Disney did say that they'd have an announcement in early 2026. You have to wonder, when does mid-2026
There we go.
begin?
Okay.
Right? So I think early is March. Okay. We start to get into May. May is more like mid.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So we are in the crucial window, and yeah, that's an interesting canary in the coal mine that Josh has been pulled out of the in-room video. So interesting.
Yeah, I think at this point for the March meetings, the CEO candidates would have speaking roles in those meetings if they're going internal. If it's external, obviously not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll see. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim continues through Disney newsletters to see how Epcot's construction was being viewed in the months before it opened. We'll be right back.
Kraft Mac and Cheese is better than 90s hip-hop. We'll remind you of your childhood without making you feel incredibly old. Kraft Mac and Cheese. Best thing ever.
And we're back. And Jim, I love this second episode of this topic because it also contained homework that you gave me to watch videos before we recorded this show.
Yes.
And I've actually started on it. Go ahead.
Well, there we go. And what Len is referring to is Leslie Iwerk's wonderful Disneyland Handcrafted, which debuted on Disney Plus back on January 22nd. And I have to say, folks, interesting side issue here. The Disney company did something interesting. At virtually the same time, they opted to make Disneyland Handcrafted available for viewing on YouTube, and not just individual clips, but the entire hour and 18-minute long documentary, which I don't know how the people working over on the streaming side of Disney feel about this, but on the other hand, you got to applaud Disney, for making this film easily available for the largest possible audience. I mean, you got to go where the eyeballs are.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Leslie, who, by the way, has been nominated for both an Oscar and Emmy, did her usual great job here. She's the gifted documentarian behind The Hand Behind the Mouse, the Ub Iwerks story. By the way, that's a 1999 film about her grandfather, Ub Iwerks. Oh. Likewise, the Pixar story back in 2007. And then, of course, there's the Imagineering story, which originally started out as a documentary, but somewhere along the line mutated into a limited series for Disney Plus. Debuted back in November of 2019 with 6 episodes, and in the 7 years since, been a lot of talk about Leslie shooting follow-up footage for additional episodes of that, and I have to kind of assume that Disneyland Handcrafted somehow grew out of that effort. But anyway, Leslie used over 200 hours of footage that have been shot on site down there in Anaheim as Disneyland was rising up out of the ground from August of 54 through July of 55. And she just did a brilliant job of capturing what a sea of controlled chaos, that was, that hundreds of men, each of them charged with their own task. In fact, at one point, there's this great image of, a guy literally being hauled into the air by a crane lens so he can then attach the topmost part of the nose cone on the TWA Moonliner, and he's
sure, just like NASA does, Jim. I'm sure that there's a booklet out there from NASA.
There we go.
I have to wonder, Jim, because I have to wonder about this. So 200 hours of footage. I wonder how much of this came from Tony Baxter's efforts to get unlabeled film canisters from the archives onto DVD and then catalog what was on there.
Yeah, I remember you once talking about going up to Emeryville. You attended a screening at Pixar.
Yeah, to Pixar, yeah. And there was pre-opening Disneyland stuff in there. I think we talked about it on the show, but there was one image of, this shirtless guy with a cigarette in his mouth, spray painting sparkling mica finishes on the walls in Tomorrowland, like 3 days before the park is supposed to open.
There we go.
I wonder if that's in there.
In fact, I'm pretty sure that footage made it into this.
Gotta be.
This then brings us back to the actual construction of EPCOT Center in the late spring, early summer of 1982. And to be clear here, this is at the point where the workforce is about to go from 4,000 people to 10,000 people. And just want to remind everyone, This project is spread across a 305-acre work site. There are 27 different venues under construction at the exact same time, and these run from everything from the 150-foot tall spaceship berth all the way down to the Rose and Crown pub, which, because it's a building that's separate from the rest of the UK Pavilion along World Showcase Lagoon, is considered a separate venue. So again, 27 venues being built by 24 contractors and over 500 subcontractors. And Len, in spite of the fact that Tishman basically sent his entire Manhattan office staff down to Orlando, and they're all now acting as de facto project managers, nobody is talking to anybody. And so few people at the EPCOT worksite have any idea of what they're actually working on. This is literally a story I got from a craftsman who was working on one of the bigger show scenes for World of Motion. Okay, so this is what he tells him. I'm working off of this blueprint, which tells me I need to build this big oblong shape that's anchored to the wall, but seemingly hanging in midair, 3 feet off the ground. And so I go to my foreman, and it's like, any idea what this is supposed to be? And he's like, no, just build it. And so, periodically, as we're building this thing, an Imagineer would come through and eyeball what we're doing and always be, careful, let's sort of looking at the electrical conduit that runs through this part of the show scene and, and then tell us, you're doing great, and leave. And so, but they never told us what we were building. So it wasn't until I came back with my family on Labor Day. That's when they threw the park open for all the construction workers who built the place, allowed us to preview a lot of the ride shows and attractions that we'd all been working on for 3 years. So I finally get to ride through this part of World of Motion and see what the hell I'd spent a lot of time building. And it says, it turns out that oblong shape, that was to support a full-size stagecoach in the train robbery scene.
Oh,
and then given all
all
the animatronic figures that are in the stagecoach or seated next to it, standing next to it. It's like, oh, now I understand why the Imagineer kept checking about us not screwing up the electrical conduits, because they needed those for those. But he said, seriously, while we were in there, in the heat of the summer, mind you, they didn't turn on the air conditioning till the building was enclosed, and that wasn't until late August. We had absolutely no idea what we were building or why.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Now, this very issue, the people working on EPCOT Center had no idea what they were actually building, became a real concern in the late winter of '81, because this is, again, when Tishman told Card Walker, it's like, look, we're going to need a lot more bodies if we're going to get this theme park up and running for, October of '82. So this is why the company decides to do two things. One is they start printing that EPCOT Center construction newsletter, which is then handed out to all of the construction workers each week along with their paycheck, with the hope that an informed staff would then become a motivated staff. And by the way, issue 1 of volume 1, Len, of the Walt Disney World EPCOT Center construction news goes out first week of February with this headline, EPCOT Center construction preview. And the subheadline was, all EPCOT construction employees invited to preview project. And in a moment, we'll get into what was involved with this multi-day event, which involved dozens of buses full of families bouncing along the still unpaved roads that circle this work site. But before we do that, there's this.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use, helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize, so you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
All right, so Jim, and you actually have a copy of this construction news, right? A physical copy.
I do.
Wow.
I do.
All right.
Thank you, eBay. Now, what's kind of interesting about this EPCOT construction preview thing, by the way, Len, scheduled for Saturday and Sunday, February 13th and 14th, 1982. They started at 9 o'clock in the morning and every hour on the hour right through till 5 o'clock. So that's 9 tours per day.
Wow.
And with a third set of tours scheduled for Saturday, February 20th. And if need be, a fourth set tentatively scheduled for their Sunday, the 21st. And this is how the program is described in the newsletter, that all construction personnel working in the EPCOT Center site, including their immediate families, are invited to attend an hour-long preview and exciting construction update. This invitation is being extended to all employees at the EPCOT Center, and that includes prime contractors, their subcontractors, clerical, and support personnel. And again, the thinking was that they wanted everyone at the EPCOT Center worksite to take part in these tours because they were thinking that inside of 3 months, an additional 6,000 people would suddenly be coming on the job site and start asking questions about this billion-dollar project. And at least the people who'd taken the tour could go, "Oh yeah, that's this. That's what you're working on." So anyway, the way the tour started? You drove around to the back of the park. You parked outside of the production services building. That was the very first building to be completed at the EPCOT worksite, kind of like how the lumber mill, which eventually became the Main Street Opera House at Disneyland, that was the first thing done.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you walk inside, they hand you some refreshments, you then watch a film that then explains the overall concept of EPCOT Center and then quickly walks you through the individual Future World and World Showcase pavilions. Immediately after that, you're ushered outside. Disney had evidently reached out to the Kissimmee school system because, face it, the park, it's not like they can use Disney's own buses that day. They're driving, the actual guests who are staying at Walt Disney World in the buses around. So they borrow all these school buses from Kissimmee, and these are what now bounce around the work site, over, the rutted dirt roads, and, they try to take them by as many of the 27 venues as possible. By the way, for weekend 2, the route did get changed because there were a couple of buses that got bogged down in the mud. Anyway, what was interesting is on the heels of these tours, the project managers from Tishman did notice a spike. Mind you, a temporary spike in productivity.
Oh, okay.
Because those 4,000, construction workers had gotten to show off to friends and family, this cool thing they were working on. So the folks at Tishman were like, ooh, maybe we could do that again, after we've grown our workforce out to 10,000, and get these guys motivated as we enter the final stretch, which now brings us, Len, to mid-August of 1982.
Okay, so we're like, 6-7 weeks out from, 6 weeks out.
If that, yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, this is when Walt Disney Productions announces that on September 6th, and by the way, that's Labor Day Monday, they will be holding Construction Employee Preview Day, which is when all 10,000 construction workers will be allowed to bring their immediate families to the work site and then ride all of the attractions that are open at that time, not to mention dine at the eateries.
Jim, this is management right here. This is what you pay management for, because it's like, oh, I would love for your family to come and see the stuff that you're working on. I guess they can walk through the mud if the roads aren't, if the walkways aren't poured. I guess we can show them the buildings if the attractions aren't running, if that's what you want for your family. Oh, God, that's genius. Oh, so smart.
It is. But you nailed it in one. I mean, that's the whole thing. Oh, well.
Not only that, but they're like looking at their coworkers like, Larry, you're gonna get that conduit run today? My kids are coming in 2 weeks.
There we go.
Yeah.
But now it becomes a foot race because during the day, you have the horticultural team, which, by the way, they've been waiting for the buildings to be finished so they can then come in and plant. And Len, this is 12,500 trees that have to go in, and an additional 200,000 shrubs. And then what's interesting is that as soon, and these guys plant until there's no daylight, and then they leave. And then what's interesting is once the sun goes down, that's when the concrete team comes in. And this really did kind of surprise me. But the thinking was that, well, look, during the day, again, horticulture's outside, but during the day also, we're loading the exhibits in. Yeah. We're loading the props in. It's only at night that, there's fewer people here at the work site, and that's when we really should pour the concrete. Len, they poured over 750,000 square feet of pink concrete, and that's the color that John Hench picked, for the park out ahead of its opening, thinking that this is supposed to be a positive view of the future in the world, and people associate pink with being happy, but on the other hand, you're pouring concrete at night.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, that's where it gets kind of interesting. The Reedy Creek Improvement District, the entire time this part of the project is going on, and it's 10 days, 2 weeks that it's going on, every night they roll their trucks over to the work site and fire up, all the lights on the trucks and all of their additional lights and focus on where the concrete is being poured that night. And the interesting thing is there's 100 concrete finishers who are assigned to this project, and they work every day that this thing is being poured. But at the same time, they're also on the horn getting 15-minute updates every 15 minutes from Walt Disney World's meteorological staff to the effect of any storms on the horizon.
Oh, right. Oh, because it's summer. Yeah. Okay,
yeah, and all it's going to take to ruin one day's concrete pour is a sudden rainstorm. So they've got piles of cans that's ready to drag over whatever's been poured to keep the extra moisture off it. And also have to remind you folks, concrete has to cure. It typically takes 5 days to get rock solid. So here's the thing, Len. Last pour at the site was on Wednesday night, September 1st. And by the way, they saved the toughest part for last. It was the giant expanse of between the two Communicore buildings.
Oh, behind Spaceship Earth, so that is the main walkway between Future World East and Future World West, right? Okay.
Oh no, that's it exactly. I mean, it's Epcot equivalent of Main Street USA, and by the way, this thing had to be set for Monday, September 5th. Again, that's Labor Day '82. That's when the construction workers preview is happening, and pleased to report that the newly poured concrete did hold up to all that foot traffic. And by the way, the trick worked, Glenn. Much like what happened back in February, the folks at Tishman reported immediately after this preview event where the construction workers got to show off, the park to their friends and family. There was an uptick in productivity, and that was just enough to get them over the finish line.
There you
go. For October 1st. Now, I will tell you that I, over the past 10 years or so, I did get to chat with the gentleman who rode herd on the 18 different unions that worked at the Epcot site. And this guy, all right, here's what he told me. 3 months out from opening, we had guys at the work site who were working 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. 2 months out, these same guys were working 7 days a week, but now pulling 12-hour shifts. And the final month, we were going around the clock.
Yeah.
And he was like, look, I saw the time cards from this period. We had guys at the work site who were working 75 days straight without taking a single day off.
Yeah, that's hard
dangerous.
to do.
It is. It is.
12-hour shift 7 days a week is 84 hours plus commute time. And that is, I've done it. I mean, I've done a 100-hour week before at work. And that's all you do is basically work and sleep.
Yeah.
75 straight days is a lot for a lot of people. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah. It is. And remember, this is in Florida. This is during the summer.
Right, yeah.
Brutal heat, humidity. And this guy, look, he flat out told me, when you have people who work that long and that hard, they get tired and they make mistakes.
Yeah,
I said, look, we're just lucky that nobody got killed at the work site, because Disney and Tishman really drove those guys hard. And if we circle back to where we started today's feature, Leslie Iwerk's great new documentary, Disney Handcrafted. Folks, when you watch this thing, pay attention to the last part of this film, which shows guys working on Tomorrowland, because that was the last part of the park to begin construction. And these construction workers who are working round the clock to meet an impossible deadline on a thing that's being designed on the fly look exhausted. And the other thing that really struck me, Len, that a weird sort of commonality between Tomorrowland and Future World. I mean, if you look cold-bloodedly at that stretch of Disneyland's Tomorrowland where you come off the hub and you have those two buildings side by side that are sort of mirror images of one another. Right. And then you look at Communicore East and Communicore West and it's like, that's the same damn design idea.
It works.
But, it works. But as Schul likes to say, the Imagineers, when they find something that works, they just stick with that idea.
I mean, they're called design patterns for a reason.
There we go. But I love the whole thing. Giant buildings that mirror one another, lots of square feet to load exhibits in. What exhibits are these? Never mind. We'll figure that out later.
Exactly. Yeah. No time to know. Yeah.
There we go. But anyway, so that's what it was like to be on the EPCOT worksite in the summer of 1980, and it just scary, fascinating time in the company's history. And again, that's one of the reasons I so enjoy going through these newsletters from the time, because these are real time reports from the field about, hey, we almost got that building done.
Fantastic. That's great. I didn't realize that. I mean, there's always a construction crunch when deadlines approach. I didn't realize it was that intense.
It was very, very scary.
Fantastic. All right, so we have to go back and watch the documentary now.
Yep. No, Disneyland Handcrafted. Again, Leslie did a great job, and I was telling Len, we need to bring her on the show. I'd love to talk with her about pulling that together.
Oh, I'd love to do it.
Yep.
Let's see what we can do.
Okay.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over to patreon.com/JimHillMedia, where we're posting exclusive shows every week. Our latest show is a live walk through modern Epcot with me, Jim, and Jim Scholl. And there's a link in the show notes. And speaking of Jim Scholl, on the next Disney journey, Jim takes a look at the 4 versions of Big Thunder Mountain that can be found at a Disney park around the planet. You might be surprised by which version of this thrill ride Mr. Scholl says is the best. On next week's show, Jim starts the history of the Great Movie Ride. Very excited to hear that. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len, at touringplans.com. And you can find more of us together with Chris Cox on The Case For with Chris Cox, a new podcast where Chris, Jim, and I debate one theme park topic at a time, and you get to vote on who's right. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey and David Gray, whose submission titled The Moose Did Not Get the Schedule about the difficulty of filming wildlife will make its debut at the 2026 Big Sky Documentary Film Festival, running February 13th through the 22nd, at the Zootown Arts Community Center on West Main Street in beautiful downtown Missoula, Montana. While Eric and David are doing that, please go into iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.